The Caribbean is home to one of the world's only regional climate change center of excellence, the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, widely known as the 5 Cs. This decade-old institution owes its birth to the vision and will of some of the region's key thinkers, namely Ambassador Edwin Carrington, former Secretary General of CARICOM, Said Musa, former Prime Minister of Belize, John Briceño, former Minister of Natural Resources and Environment for Belize, Owen Arthur, former Prime Minister of Barbados, Dr. Kenrick Leslie, who serves as the Executive Director of the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, Dr. Ulrich Trotz, the Center's Deputy Director and Science Advisor, and Dr. Leonard Nurse, Chairman of the Center's Board of Governors. As we celebrate the Center's first 10 years of mobilizing the region's response to climate change, through coordination, collaboration, and partnerships, we have asked some of these visionaries to reflect on the distinctly regional climate change institution they championed.
The 5 Cs is celebrating its 10th year of existence this year, and we wish to thank all member states. During this initial 10-year phase, we have focused mainly on resource mobilization and capacity building, both within the 5 Cs and among our regional partners. And this has culminated in the development of a strategic plan and an implementation plan to accompany it for building regional resilience to the adverse impacts of climate change. I'm pleased to say that the 5 Cs is now at a stage where it focuses on partnerships with national governments and others, and on the implementation of practical on-the-ground adaptation initiatives.
This region, the CARICOM region, definitely can benefit from an institution as the center. Bear in mind that one of the big phenomena of the climate change is sea level rise and the danger which this poses to a number of countries in the Caribbean. We need a climate change institution badly for providing technical advice to develop our national policies in such a way as not to lead to an increase in average temperature.
Another committed regionalist, former Prime Minister of Belize, Said Musa, witnessed intense weather patterns in his country, which compelled him to call for a regional center to address climate change.
We've had hurricanes for years, but we've never had it with this kind of intensity. And that has certainly to do with climate change. Similarly, the whole question of beach erosion. We could go into all the droughts in some countries, heavy rainfalls in others, floods. So we've had extremes at both ends of the weather pattern. The need for a center certainly came up in our discussions at the regional level that would not only collect data, but would also provide useful advice to our various governments on how to handle this phenomenon.
Having settled on the need for the development of a regional center to provide climate change policy advice and guidelines to CARICOM member states, the next task was to select a strategic location from which the region could be served.
Barbados was clearly the favorite country or nation or island for which this climate change center should have gone. Talking to our colleague at the time involved with the climate change center, Dr. Kenrick Leslie, and Dr. Trotz advised me to see what you can do to talk to Prime Minister Owen Arthur, because really Belize should be the country where the center should be. So we had to make a very concerted effort to try and convince Prime Minister Arthur to give Belize a chance. After all, when you talk about institutions in CARICOM, most of the institutions either go to Trinidad and Tobago or Jamaica or Barbados. They are the MDCs, the more developed ones. I met Prime Minister Arthur one-on-one at a conference in Washington, and during the reception after the meet, along with Kenrick, and I think Trotz was there too, we certainly had this talk with him. At first he was clearly resisting, but eventually he came around and said he will think about it. And so we left it at that. And eventually he agreed. And this is how that center became established in Belmopan, Belize.
One of the considerations that allowed us to proceed with the establishment of the center was to avoid a significant resource burden by member states. So they agreed, it was established, and had to find its resources.
Funding the ambitious and necessary vision of a regional climate change center without the customary subventions for regional institutions presented a unique challenge for the nascent center. But we have forged a sustainable path through a mixture of partnerships.
We could not have gotten as much done within the Caribbean region if we weren't working with our partner agencies such as the CIMHAs, SEDEMA, University of the West Indies, and INSMET in Cuba, and so forth. The center is one of the few, if not the only entity within the CARICOM region that has its own judicial personality. It allows it to be able to sign off on agreements, negotiate programs. It doesn't receive government subvention. While it does receive some support from the governments of Barbados and Belize, it doesn't receive an annual subvention from member states. So in short, it has to be negotiating and working for its own existence. So that in itself is fairly unique within the Caribbean region. There needs to be some continuity to ultimately implement components of those projects. And so to build that institutional framework, it was recognized that it was necessary to have a climate change center.
The success of the center's actions, including its ability to generate funding, is grounded in its three foundation documents: the Lilienthal Declaration, the Regional Framework for Achieving Development Resilient to Climate Change, and its implementation plan.
The center was at the forefront of getting us to develop what we call the Lilienthal Declaration, which is our policy statement that basically was seeking to hold emission levels beneath 350 or just about 350 parts per million, but also that temperature should not rise to more than 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2100. Complementing that policy statement is the regional strategy for achieving development resilient to climate change, and then the implementation plan. It's out of those which our discrete programs and projects have basically flowed. We've been able to improve the sensitization of our policymakers that climate change cannot stay within the realm of the natural scientists. It impacts our poverty alleviation programs, it impacts our water supply, it impacts our food security, it impacts our health, and therefore there is no dichotomy between addressing climate change and addressing these other development objectives. So we have raised the consciousness, the visibility, and the importance of this issue.
Our foundation documents and programs across the region have a sound scientific basis. This ensures our climate resilience building efforts are effective. Our programs are informed by the comprehensive downscaling work done by the Climate Studies Group, which includes the University of the West Indies, INSMET, the Center, and the University of Suriname. The Regional Framework for Achieving Development Resilient to Climate Change, which was approved by CARICOM leaders in July 2009, is guided by 5 strategic elements and the 20 corresponding goals. 1. Promote mainstreaming climate change adaptation strategies into the sustainable development agendas of CARICOM states. 2. Promote the implementation of specific adaptation measures to address key vulnerabilities in the region. 3. Promote actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through fossil fuel reduction and conservation, and switching to renewable and cleaner energy sources. 4. Promote actions to reduce the vulnerability of natural and human systems in CARICOM countries to the impacts of a changing climate. 5. Promote actions to derive social, economic, and environmental benefits through the prudent management of standing forests in CARICOM countries.
This document is very specific to the Caribbean. What might be unique is the whole process by which it was put together and the sort of political endorsement. This was endorsed at the level of heads of government. That sort of legitimacy I think might be absent from some of the other similar documents that have been developed. Essentially what we're talking about is that we have one plan, we have one implementation plan that comes out of the regional framework, comes out of the strategy. So we're hoping that that one plan would inform action at the regional and the national level. We're hoping that the national governments will use that plan as a guide if they're looking at national action.
These documents are a reflection of what the countries indicated were their priority. Now, having developed those, the idea is to implement. And so our mantra is that we may act regionally to deliver nationally, because all adaptation measures are national. So in terms of building disaster, we have focused on adaptation, putting in place plans, programs, and projects that will help us to better withstand the vagaries of weather and climate.
We have been successfully implementing the regional framework through a myriad of pioneering programs. These include the photovoltaic-powered saltwater reverse osmosis systems in Keycacher, Belize, Bequia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and on both Carriacou and Petit Martinique in Grenada. These systems provide potable water for local populations and sustains critical industries and infrastructure in a cost-efficient and sustainable manner. We are also improving climate risk planning, management and action by building an integrated network of coral reef early warning system stations across the region. We have installed coral reef early warning system stations in Barbados, Belize, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago. We have also installed more than 50 terrestrial automatic weather stations in 16 Caribbean Forum countries. Our comprehensive approach to climate change includes climate risk assessment and adaptation using Caribbean-focused tools. Leveraging regional expertise and awareness, we pioneered the Caribbean Climate Online Risk and Adaptation Tool, also known as C-Coral, which is now being embedded in development planning across the region. This seminal risk management tool was recognized in 2013 at the prestigious CIR Magazine Risk Management Awards. C-Coral builds on our strong record of vulnerability capacity assessment and promotion that resulted in some of the world's first pilot adaptation programs, including the climate proofing of the Marchand Community Center in St. Lucia and the construction of a rainwater harvesting and wastewater recycling facility at Coconut Bay Beach Resort and Spa in Vieux-Fort, St. Lucia. We have also been demonstrating the viability of using fuel from naturally harvested Cahoon palm nuts and documenting its economic and social benefits under the Cahoon Palm Nut Renewable Energy Project in Flowers Bank, Belize. This project is a critical part of our transformational trust because renewable energy allows us to tackle both climate change and economic competitiveness, which are both undermined by fossil fuel consumption that costs the region US $37 billion of its foreign exchange earnings each year.
Caribbean Climate Change Center has been very successful. More successful than most people thought it would have been. I like the whole structure that they set up, because what they did was to set up a climate change center that would be small in staff, but yet reach out to the experts as the need arises. The idea and how it was conceptualized by Dr. Leslie and his team, I think that they have been so successful in getting the funding and getting the projects for the region, selling the concept of the Climate Change Center to the rest of the world. I think that they have done such a great job in such a short time, 10 years.
More recently, the Center joined a highly select group of entities to be accredited by the Board of the Green Climate Fund, a key multilateral financing mechanism that supports climate action in developing countries.
Climate change poses a multiplicity of problems for those of us who can least afford it. Mitigation and adaptation wouldn't be possible without the requisite financial resources to guard against the challenges the GCF is only one of the multiplicity of climate finance initiatives that are available globally. It's unique in the sense that it is intended to bring about the transformational change that's needed in the countries on the ground. The Center is the first regional implementing entity within the Caribbean, and it's a fact that we're very proud of. The Center is the intermediary between the Green Climate Fund and the member states of the Caribbean community. The fund offers the opportunity for countries to take on the transformation that's needed to build climate resilient pathway and to secure actual sustainable development.
This means that instead of donor countries developing projects for our region, the Center is now in a position to develop those projects, ranging from a minimum $10 million to $50 million. And therefore, we can design projects that are more relevant to our region. So in the next 10 years, that is the way we hope to go.
So the center is of vital importance. And that's why I'm very happy to say, and this the 10th anniversary, that I think it's one of the major decisions that we took back in 2004. The center has been recognized as a center of excellence. Now that's a major accomplishment, and I pay tribute to Dr. Leslie and the entire staff of the Climate Change Center for the great work that they're doing.
You know, you can see tremendous progress being made in the right direction. And I'm sure we can attribute this to the very capable staff that the center has hired, both local Belizeans and folks from across the region. And it cannot help but instill great hope that for the next few years, you know, the center will continue to flourish, will continue to be a success.
Starting with a staff of 1, and now we have a staff of technical people, administrative people of in excess of 50. Without, and I emphasize, without any financial support from the governments. This means we had to demonstrate that we were a competent set of people as a center of excellence, that donors would come to us to ask us to execute their program. So that was one of the ways over the last 10 years. How do you go forward from there? In the first 10 years, we had to put in place our good fiduciary system, our technical expertise, and now we have to go beyond that. We have been accredited by the Green Climate Fund, which means that we have to develop programs for countries. So we have to put in place competent people that can do this and therefore compete on the level of other larger institutions. So that will be a different aspect of development during the course of the next 10 years.
The 5 Cs will continue to lead regional efforts to educate the people of the Caribbean, guide governments and communities on adaptation and mitigation measures, and foster the development of climate-resilient industries for the security of CARICOM nations.
To learn more about climate change, visit caribbeanclimate.bz and explore the Clearinghouse, the most extensive repository of Caribbean-specific information on climate change.